Oh, hello, America. Welcome. It's Wednesday, which means everything is downhill from here. And that has a different kind of meaning when you look at the news of the day, especially the war headlines. Yeah, it looks like it's all downhill from here. So we're going to get into that here in just a second. I want to give you some meaning behind all of the headlines because there's a lot going on with the war, the corruption that is happening in our country. Mike Lee is joining us here. I want to know which senators just don't want this thing just don't want, the START Act to pass. I doubt he's going to give me names because he's too nice for that. But I'm going to do everything I can to squeeze them out of him because I want names. I want to know who is standing against this besides Thune and Cornyn. Who's standing against it? All right, we'll get into that here in a second. First, let me tell you about Relief Factor. Spring is here. Summer's right around the corner. And for a lot of people, this time of the year is when you start looking at the yard and thinking about everything you want to do out there. Maybe it's a garden that you've been planting. Maybe it's cleaning up the flower beds, trimming the hedges, or finally getting the yard back into shape after a long winter. There's something deeply satisfying about that kind of work, being outside, using your hands, seeing real progress by the end of the day. But maybe for you, the problem isn't motivation. Maybe it's pain. Maybe your back, your knees, your shoulders, they start objecting after, just a few minutes or even a half an hour before the work is done. That's one reason why so many people have decided to try Relief Factor. It was designed to help reduce everyday joint and muscle discomfort so you can actually stay active and do the things you really enjoy. Over 1 million people have tried Relief Factor, and 2/3 of them have gone on to take more. I'm one of them. Begin your 3-week quick start and see what Relief Factor can do for you. Call 800-4RELIEF. 800, the number 4, relief. It's relieffactor.com. Oh, my. I got to just tell you, just on a side note before we start, I just looked up into the monitor and I saw myself, and you have no idea what a horrible thing is that you have to look at yourself. I mean, you're looking at me, so but imagine you having to look at you looking like me every day. It's not a play. Every day I look up at the monitor and I'm like, oh my gosh, woo. So this might be talking you out of joining Torch because you do get the visuals along with it, which doesn't necessarily make this show all that much better. All right, let me tell you about the headlines today, what's going on. The FBI now has quietly warned that Iran has been exploring the possibility of launching drones from a vessel positioned off the California coast. Well, good news, we have the Coast Guard. Oh, no, the Democrats have defunded DHS, so good luck with that one, Coast Guard. Good luck with that one, California. This is not theoretical warfare. This is the modern battlefield. Asymmetric, deniable, and designed to bypass the strongest military on earth. At the same time, Iranian officials are promising what they call a painful response, and their commanders are warning civilians in parts of the Middle East to stay away from banks and economic centers. They are openly signaling that financial infrastructure is going to be treated now as a battlefield. Also, the cyber attacks have already begun. A group tied to Tehran has reportedly struck a major American medical company, knocking the internal systems offline and seizing massive data sets. When banks and hospitals and shipping lanes and energy supplies all become targets, you're no longer talking about a traditional war. This is the war of the future. You're looking at a systems war. And this is the kind of war that aims to destabilize the entire society rather than defeating an army. Then let's throw in the Strait of Hormuz, the latest on that. Roughly 1/5 of the world's oil supply now comes through that 20-mile corridor of water every single day. A fifth, 20% of everything. For decades, it has been the most sensitive choke point in global trade. I mean, we have been guarding that since World War II. Saudi Arabia yesterday began warning of catastrophic consequences if shipping disruption continues. Iran is already threatening that oil could reach $200 a barrel if the conflict escalates. Those numbers are not abstract. They're not made up. They translate into a price of diesel that moves the food across our country. They translate into airline tickets and heating bills and the cost of every product that relies on transportation. This is now something that we are in, whether you are for it or against. This cannot go on. Energy shocks are the fastest ways to push the global economy into recession. And $200 a barrel, you're talking about complete global upheaval. You're looking at a possible reset of the economy and of the U.S. dollar and every other currency on earth. Remember, I warned back in 2017-ish. I said the only things that really are left are assassinations and war. And we've had our assassinations, and we've had our assassination attempts, and we're not done with that, I fear. But we are now in war. Meanwhile, vessel tracking shows that while Iran is threatening to cut off the oil to the West, millions of barrels are continuing to flow to China through the same waters. The diesel, that matters because it reveals the geopolitical fault lines forming beneath the conflict. Energy supply is a strategic weapon, and nations are positioning themselves accordingly. And the United States and the G7 are now discussing naval escorts for shipping in the Persian Gulf. This is a step that begins to resemble the convoy system that were used during the World Wars. We're in a different world, gang. When the global economy requires warships to protect commercial shipping lanes, it tells you how fragile the situation actually is. Now, Donald Trump is still saying that we're going to make short order of this. He has now said that anybody who is an Iranian or living on the coastline of Iran, you should get out of there as soon as possible, which means we're just going to strafe that whole area. Now, inside of Iran, there are signs of real instability as well. Reports suggest the Revolutionary Guard may be pressuring clerics to install Khomeini as the next supreme leader while he remains absent from public view after his reported injuries. Now, I love this because remember we told you yesterday that they put up a cardboard cutout of him. We found out, we said yesterday, this might be an AI, but it looked really, really good. And I could believe this too, but that they put this cardboard cutout at an IRGC rally where he was supposed to be, because they said he couldn't attend because he had some injuries, but nothing to worry about. Well, I don't know about that. So it was just a cardboard cutout. It was not real, turns out. However, he didn't show up for that because of injuries. Now, they said he just has a little boo-boo on his leg. I think it's The Guardian is reporting today that he is in a coma and has lost his leg after being seriously injured in airstrikes. I would suggest if you're up for that role, you don't attend any meetings. You might want to stay deep underground. But we don't know what the truth is on that yet. Now, there's one other thing that you need to know as we tie all of this stuff together to give you a real feel and sense of what's happening in the world. Between November 21st and November 24th of last year, we are just finding out now that somebody walked into one of the most famous military installations in the United States, Fort Campbell. That's the home of the 101st Airborne, and they walked out with 4 military drones. Now, I don't know who actually goes in and steals from the 101st Airborne, but a couple of guys did. By the 24th, they were seen. The last time they were seen was the 21st. By the 24th, they were all gone. We have security footage that shows the 2 suspects. Can we bring up? There they are. There they are. 2 guys. And they seem to be carrying guns. They're wearing hoodies, balaclavas, or baklavas, which I think I would rather be wearing baklava all over my face myself, but whatever. And they're wearing gloves, and they appear to be carrying rifles. Now, who goes in to the 101st Airborne carrying a rifle? Kind of a death sentence. How did they get in? How did they get out with 4 drones? We're not talking about the kind of drones, that you buy, at Best Buy. These drones are worth up to $125,000. And the criminal investigation division of the Army has now just offered a $5,000 reward for information leading to the arrest of these thieves. A 5,000. That's all we're doing. A 5,000. Let me tell you why this is so important and worth maybe more than $5,000 for information. These are not hobby drones. Okay, these are called, I think, Skydo X10D autonomous reconnaissance drones. These are built specifically for government use. They're equipped with advanced cameras, thermal sensors, AI navigation systems. They are designed for surveillance and battlefield reconnaissance. So what you're seeing over and around, how we're tracking people, how we're knowing where everybody is because we're using these drones. Again, these are different. What they are capable of and what the threat might imply is really what you need to pay attention to. Here's the first concern. These systems are AI-assisted autonomous drones. They're designed to fly in environments where GPS doesn't work, okay, or where there's a geofencing. They can go through that. They navigate obstacles, map terrain. They conduct surveillance without constant human control. That means anybody who understands the system can use them to map infrastructure, energy facilities, ports, public venues. Beginning to understand the first concern? Here's the second one. These drones contain military sensors and payload modules, thermal cameras, high-resolution imaging systems. This is the equipment that actually locates people and vehicles, can track them and lock onto targets. They can track heat signatures through buildings and through darkness. This technology alone, because it's military, just the technology has huge value on the black market. And the people who buy that are not hobbyists. They're not the ones who are like, I'm going to fly my drone over my neighbor's house. Here's the third concern. Who walks into the 101st Airborne armed? Okay, most thieves stealing electronics don't walk into a military building. Period. Hard stop. If you're stealing stuff from the military, you better know what you're stealing and where you're going. How is that happening? How'd you get the information into what is happening in this military installation? And the third part of this is you don't walk in with rifles, because if you're walking in dressed like they're dressed with a rifle, you're going to get shot if you're caught. So this means these are a different kind of thief. Is that possibly drug cartels? Is that possibly somebody who is selling these who has just bought a lot of property near one of our military bases? Did I mention that these can drop bombs as well? Now, here's the fourth concern, timing. Because the theft occurred during a period when U.S. intelligence agencies were warning about the possibility of Iranian-linked actors trying to attempt drone strikes here in the United States, Iran's leadership has already made public threats, blah, blah, blah. And they're talking about our own homeland, and they're talking about, what did I just say? Banks, economic infrastructure, energy facilities. These drones are the kind of drones that can target those kinds of targets, make it very easy. And they have been warning of this for several times just in the past year. Now, I want you to hear something really clearly. The Army says there's no confirmed link between this threat and any foreign actor. None. Okay. All right. I believe we don't have any information. I'll take that. But does that make it better? Let me tell you why in 60 seconds.
NMLS 182334. NMLSConsumerAccess.org. APR for rates in the 5 starts at 6.799% for well-qualified borrowers. Call 800-906-2440 for details about credit costs and terms.
Okay, you know what most people don't realize about high-interest debt is not just that it's super expensive. It's slow. It slows everything down. The plans you have, the goals you've set, even the simple things that you'd like to do with your money slows down. A big chunk of your money every month is going towards high-interest credit cards, and it can feel like you're really running hard every day and you're staying in the same place. I know. Everybody's experiencing this right now. American Financing will help you look at your mortgage and see whether you can use your home's equity to pay off some of this high-interest debt and roll it into one lower monthly payment. The goal is really simple. Less money going to interest, more room in your budget. And if you've been trying to dig out from a mountain of credit card debt, it might be worth having a conversation with the salaried, non-commissioned mortgage consultants at American Financing. They can walk you through your options. They can see whether a refi or just reorganization will put you back in control of your money again instead of the other way around. There are no upfront fees. You can find out if you're qualified right now. Just call American Financing at 800-906-2440. It's 800-906-2440. Or go to AmericanFinancing.net. 10 seconds, station ID. It is Wednesday, is it? It's Thursday? Ricky just said, you've misinformed everybody, it's Wednesday. Oh my gosh, it's Thursday. Oh, that makes me so happy.
Big fact check coming in.
Oh, that is great. I stand corrected. I told you I'd lead with my mistakes. It's Thursday. Thank God. You know, it's nothing worse than thinking it's Thursday and it's actually Wednesday, and nothing better than thinking it's Wednesday and it's actually Thursday. Well, yes, you thinking that it's Thursday when it's actually Friday. That's actually better. But anyway, okay. So let me tell you, I told you earlier this week, what is AI? How does AI work? The way AI works is it just looks for patterns. Intelligence, artificial or actual intelligence, is all about pattern recognition. So let's look at the pattern of this. This is why people are really concerned, is the pattern. Ask questions on the pattern. How did the individuals enter the military base and a building on the base and remove 4 big drone systems without immediate detection? There's dot number 1 that's kind of glaring. Here's dot number 2. Were they familiar with the facility? How did they know where those things were? Dot number 3. Did somebody inside help them? Were the drones the target, or was the technology inside the drone actually the target? Because modern conflicts no longer begin the way they used to. The battlefield has changed. A small drone can, scout the power plant or the rail yards or the fuel terminals or the ports or a stadium filled with people. This is the uncomfortable reality of modern warfare. And it's easy for us to now find ourselves in conflict way before the first missiles launch. It's the quiet preparations. It's the disappearance of these drones back in November, and none of us knew. And then take small pieces of that technology. Systems acquired and then pieced together, piece by piece, reproduced. The truth is, most Americans still imagine war as something that is far away from here. Uniforms and battlefields and front lines. The world that has emerged in the last decade looks very different. Do you remember seeing any of those drones? These were little drones. Imagine the videos of the drones in Ukraine that were chasing the guys in the tanks. Okay, there was no escape. That's the kind of warfare that the world is changing to. And 4 of those very expensive, very powerful drones have just disappeared. Who took them? Well, don't worry, our government's on it. They're offering $5,000 reward for any information. $5,000, that's all it's worth? I think we need to up that and find out what the hell happened to these military drones. How did people get on to one of our most sensitive bases and take them? Who were they? Terrorists? Interior terrorists? People who are just trying to make a buck? Or drug cartels? Who took these drones? Kind of an important question. Maybe we should look at all the dots. All right, people are often at their very best when something goes wrong. A flood hits town, fire rips through a community, and a family loses everything in a storm. Suddenly, people who have never met before just start showing up with trucks and food and supplies and help. It is honestly one of the best things about our country. When people are hurting, others just automatically step in. It is the Judeo-Christian values that we hold. The problem is some of that response in some areas when it's really devastating it requires some coordination, and in groups that know how to navigate this. This is what Mercury One does. This is my charity. We started it, I don't know, over 10 years ago, 15 years ago maybe. And they help the people who are on the ground. When disaster strikes, we're there. We support the humanitarian projects. We help communities rebuild after the tragedy. And we partner with the very best, the first people on the ground and the people who actually make a difference. So if you want to help, just become part of the team, will you? $15 a month. Your gift will ensure that we have everything we need at mercury1.org. Mercury1.org.
Welcome back to the Torch Insider Show. I am Jason Butchell. Matt, was that a cue to start? Was that what that was? Oh, okay. Very, very, very interesting update to the. Yes, Glenn.
Chances that is not an inside job.
So a lot of people are saying that in the comments right now. John Carmichael sounds like an inside job. Jen in Colorado because they had to have inside help. There could be, but what I do know is that there are thousands of private contractors on every single military base. When I was at Camp Pendleton,
right,
they range from like higher level like suits to also construction workers. And I just did a really quick check at Fort Campbell. There's over 2,100 private contractors doing various jobs on just on that military base. So
yeah, I don't mean to besmirch our military because our military, they're amazing. So I don't mean to say that the military is sold out. Private contractors are a whole different story, and not all private contractors are bad either. But I see that more likely than than our military.
But military are human as well, so it absolutely could be, like some random guy who's like, "Hey, I got these buddies that can do this. They have military IDs because they're private contractors." And then someone saying, "Here's the key to the supply closet," or something like that.
Why would you take guns on them? Why would you take rifles?
Yeah, that's stupid. Yeah, that right there shows to me that it's not military at all, because the military personnel would know that is like, why do that? Just show up in your uniform or just show up as you normally would on the weekend.
With your ID.
Yeah, and just go in. And then if you want to ruin your life, ruin your life. But bringing a weapon, that to me says outside influence. That's like to me, I think it's probably a contractor that did that. And theft on military bases actually happens all the time, but not so much with like specialized gear and equipment like these drones. That to me, you said the Army said that they said there's no connection to a foreign actor. Well, that's what they're saying, but do we know if they were coerced by someone, or did someone pay them to? Did someone encourage them to do this? Because that's a very specific piece of gear to go after for it just to be like there's no connection.
Here's my guess on what we're actually facing. Drug cartels.
Yeah.
I think we are facing drug cartels. I think drug cartels are the most likely that want this kind of stuff. Either that or you get into, nation states, Iran, China, and then you're in real trouble. Then you're at world war if that were the case. But
the thing that's scary to me,
I think drug cartels would be likely the recipients of this, that they would want that and would be stupid enough to go onto a base with a gun.
And that would make sense because on the border they're operating their drones, we're operating our drones to locate them. It's kind of scary when you think about there would be a crypto load probably installed in these drones. So that's how
what's that mean?
So that's how we scramble basically the communication so nobody else can decipher. And if you have ever been in the military and you've seen a piece of gear that has a crypto load that's been loaded onto something like a radio or whatever, all training stops if they lose something like that. All training for the entire time. So if you've been scheduled to be out there for a week and they lose something with a crypto load, you'll be online walking through fields for hours to try and find it. They just stand down. That's how seriously they take this. But that's probably one of the biggest concerns I would have on that, right? Just in the immediate was there a crypto?
Right. They now know our secrets. They know a secret that we have.
And they can try to use it, right? And they could try to use that to break or listen into some of our communications wherever they use these things.
And the GPS geofencing ability to get past all that's also huge.
Yeah. I mean, it's very specific. And if you look at the capabilities that they would be trying to, look in on or counter, is also very specific. So if it's in the immediate, first thought comes, just like you said, cartels. Second would be, outside the country, kind of foreign actors. But it's interesting the Army immediately said, the other connection.
One. I think cartels are the most likely, is maybe the least scary, although that's still terrifying. The next one that would be on my list is not Iran. It would be China. China owning all of that property all around all of these bases. That's not good.
No.
You have 4 of these. You hit 4 power plants. And you have really disrupted the American system.
You know what's crazy, Glenn, is...
Again, I said... Go ahead.
I'm looking at reporting on this, and it's all local news. There's hardly any mainstream media covering this, as if they just don't care. It's pretty much all local news just covering this. Is this not a legitimate story? I highly doubt that. It's just it's wild.
I got Mike Lee coming up in here a second, and I want to talk to you about all this on the air at the top of the hour because I think this is amazing. Cool. By the way, Iran's new leader just released a statement. Can we find out what that is, Ricky?
Coming back to Glenn right now.
We have Senator Mike Lee on to talk to us about the SAVE Act. What the hell is going on? Excuse my language, Senator Mike Lee. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you, Glenn. Good to be with you as always.
Okay, now, Mike, you're the nicest guy I know. You're the most senatorial kind of guy I know. You don't ever like to kick up dust and dirt, you know. But I got to ask you, what the hell is going on? Who in the Senate just does not want this thing to come to the floor and actually have their vote counted? Come on. Who?
That's the most curious thing, Glenn. We know that there are 3 who are opposed to the bill. They've been public about that. Senators Murkowski, McConnell, and Tillis. What we don't know is who else might be among those reputed to be against bringing up the talking filibuster, using the talking filibuster to bring up the Save America Act, to pass the Save America Act. Look, we've got basically 0 chance of passing this without invoking the talking filibuster. If we do invoke it, we've got a chance. Now, we can't guarantee exactly what it will look like. We can't guarantee exactly what the outcome will be, but we know we've got a chance, a decent chance to pass it. If we do it this way, in the same way that they had a decent chance of passing the Civil Rights Act of 1964, if and only if they used the talking filibuster. They did, It passed. We should do the same thing here. Yes, it takes work. Yes, there's uncertainty. Yes, it'd be a pain in the neck, but you know what? That's our job. And thank heavens, for those who are grateful for the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the protections that it brought with it, they should all be very grateful that the Senate didn't wuss out then. They should be very grateful that they didn't let a few senators say, well, I'm going to vote against cloture, so don't even try, or just force a failed failure theater cloture vote at the front end, and then we'll move on. Thank heavens they didn't do that. They stuck with it. They stuck with it for 60 days. And you know what happened? It brought people to the table. It made people think. It made people realize they were on the wrong side, the losing side of history, and they ended up negotiating some changes to the bill to save face, and they got the thing passed. We have to do the same thing here. We don't know who the other three other people are, other than those initial three who have, identified themselves as against the bill. I strongly disagree with them, but at least they've got the courage to say what they're doing. There are others who are under the cover of night for reasons I don't understand. They're not required to identify themselves. Instead, take pot shots from the cheap seats and say we don't want to do it. But the American people feel differently, and we ought to do this. The American people are with us on this, Glenn. It doesn't come this way very often. These ships don't pass this way very often, where we've got the House, we've got the Senate, we've got the White House, and we've got 85% of the American people on our side. Only congressional Democrats and a few miscellaneous others are against us. So let's take advantage of it. And don't let these people hide in silence and secrecy and not even identify themselves, much less articulate their reasons for not wanting to do it. This is absurd.
So Jonathan Martin at Politico came after me the other day, and he said, how can one spend decades in and around American politics and not understand the basic macro politics of midterm elections? He was taking me on because I said, it'll be the death of the Republic. And it might be the death of the Republicans if they don't take this up and pass it. And my producer, Ricky, tried to answer some of his questions, because, sometimes people care more about policy, principles than politics. And he seemed to miss the point entirely when he replied. He said, midterms are historically difficult for the party in power. It has nothing to do whether a voter ID passes, 6 months before the election. Stop with the apocalyptic nonsense and learn some basic history. I'm not sure what history he's looking for other than, midterms are tough for the party that's in. But he seems to miss that I really believe the voters that go out and actually vote, the base of your party that care, are tired of this back and forth political nonsense. And they're saying, here's a principle that you have the chance to actually pass, that everybody in America is for. Mike, tell me, is anybody in the Senate concerned that maybe by not doing these things, you will lose your base and people are not going to go out and fight and even fight the traffic to go out and vote for you people? And I'm sorry to lump you in on that, but the GOP, they're not going to go out and vote for you because you don't stand for anything. This is the biggest clear victory I have ever seen. And the GOP is not going to take advantage of it, and they won't tell us why, and they don't even want to be on record on which ones vote for it and which ones vote against. Something's terribly wrong here.
Because we're addicted to comfort, we're addicted to convenience, we meaning the Senate as an institution. We've gotten so accustomed to predictability and ease and comfort and being able to plan ahead and saying, well, I want to be on this city on this day. I want to give a speech here on that day. Sometimes you have to do things in this job that are difficult. Sometimes you have to take a lot of votes. Sometimes you have to give a lot of speeches. Sometimes you have to devote a lot of time at inconvenient times in order to do things before you run out of time. We're about to run out of time. And that reporter's right. Things can be very difficult for the party that's got the majority in both houses of Congress and the White House. And that's all the more reason why we've got to do everything we can to make sure our elections are secure and do everything we can to make sure that our base shows up. And they're not going to show up unless we fight their battles, unless we make clear that we're with them. This one should not be hard, Glenn. There are things in this job that are hard, that are really hard. This isn't one of them. And I literally do not understand. This has been one of the more perplexing things in 15 years in the United States Senate that I've seen. I literally don't have a legitimate explanation for this. I mean, I get it. The radical left hates this bill. They hate it with a white-hot passion. And we can all make an educated guess as to why they hate it. But regardless, that doesn't mean that the rest of us who are not part of the radical left have to go along with it. And so I'm dumbfounded by the fact that we as Senate Republicans are resisting this. Now, all that said, look, if we move forward, and I've spoken to Senator Thune, the Senate Majority Leader, as recently as last night about this, and we'll move to it and we'll debate it, regardless of whether he wants to call it a talking filibuster. I don't care what he calls it, but we've got to get onto the bill, and we've got to not move right ahead to filing cloture and going forward with what would at this point be a failed cloture vote. We've got to make them speak. We've got to make them hold the floor. We've got to make them defend their indefensible position in front of the American people under the white-hot lights of the Senate floor. And we got to make them do it for a significant amount of time. I don't know how much time it's going to take, but you subject them to that for enough time, and I'm very confident some of them are going to start to see the light on this. Some of them are going to start coming to the negotiating table on this because they don't want to have to defend the indefensible very long.
So Thune says he'll bring it to a vote. But what does that mean? Does that mean the cloture thing?
Well, if it means he's going to bring it up, we'll have a motion. See, that's the beauty of this bill and the procedural status of the bill. It's coming over from the House of Representatives in the form of a message. There are all these weird rules that relate to the interplay between the House rules and the Senate rules. The House sends us a bill in the form of a message. That means that we don't have to take a cloture vote at the front end to get onto the bill. With many bills, you've got to cast a vote on what's called cloture on the motion to proceed. And that takes 60 votes to get us to the point where we can proceed to a bill. We don't have that here. So he's going to bring it up. Getting onto the bill will occur at a simple majority vote threshold. And we just need to debate the bill for a while, for a considerable amount of time, without filing cloture, without going to the next step of bringing debate to a close on the bill itself, because that takes 60 votes. We don't have that yet. Following back to our example from the Civil Rights Act of 1964, they were 32 votes shy of cloture when the bill arrived from the House of Representatives in March of 1964. They spent 60 days debating it, and lo and behold, those people who were opposed to it, mostly Democrats, by the way, they started to negotiate after a few weeks of this. And they were eventually able to negotiate some changes that allowed them to save enough face that they were able to and willing to vote for cloture at the end of the process. And as a result, that bill passed. This is one of those moments.
That's what
I don't want to compare the two bills. They're different bills, but this one should be way easier to pass than that one. It's simpler. It's
oh my gosh,
way more popular than that one is. And so we ought to get this.
I have to tell you, it just pissed me off so much when Thune came out and said, yeah, well, they still needed 60 votes. Yeah, they didn't have the 60 votes when they started. 60 days later, as you said, the 34 votes suddenly were found. I mean, it's so agonizing. Donald Trump seems to be really clear on pushing and saying, get this done. They don't seem to care. Thune doesn't seem to care. McConnell, of course, doesn't. Murkowski, Tillis, they don't care. Has he done everything he can?
Well, look, no. Nobody's done everything that they can until they have gone through the steps that we've described. And again, I don't care what we want to call it. If he doesn't like calling it a talking filibuster, I really could not care less. What I care about is getting this damn bill on the floor, debating it for a long time. I mean, 2 weeks ought to be the bare minimum, and then reassess at that point where we are and what we need to do to keep the momentum going and what we need to do to keep bringing about consensus. But the one thing we cannot do is bring it to the floor and then say, oh, gee, we're tired. We want to take a recess. It's time for recess. We need to recess for a couple of weeks for Easter, and then, some of us want to go to the Bahamas or whatever ridiculous thing they've got planned. That will result in failure. And so I can't emphasize enough the importance of continuing to talk about this, continuing to encourage your senators, regardless of where you think they may be on this, whether you think they're staunchly against it or already for it. I promise you, they need encouragement. They need to be told, you need to be in Washington. You need to not leave Washington until this is done and the Department of Homeland Security is funded.
I've only got about 60 seconds. Mike, is there any procedure that allows J.D. Vance to take the leadership role?
J.D. Vance can come to the Senate anytime he wants and immediately assume the position, the presiding officer chair. There is, I've long believed, significant and underutilized authority that comes with sitting in that chair. Just the ability to call the shots from moment to moment, to make procedural rulings upon receiving, but not necessarily always guided by the advice of the parliamentarian. The presiding officer, especially if the vice president, can do what he wants. But I would certainly welcome the vice president coming to do that. And I would also welcome each and every Republican senator weighing in on this and encouraging Senate Republicans to do the right thing. Look, I don't want to speak for anyone else. I don't want to put words into any senator's mouth. It is not my place to do that. But I will say this. I do think that John Thune wants to win the November elections. I do think he wants to keep both chambers of Congress in Republican hands. And based on my most recent conversations with him, including last night, I think he gets the fact that we can't get on this bill and immediately start heading to cloture. Let's continue to encourage him to prolong debate on this as long as it takes to get it passed.
Thanks, Mike. I'm going to say something and Mike didn't. I think Thune is a piece of garbage myself on this, and worthless. And I would encourage the White House to encourage J.D. Vance to go over and assume the role. Get this done. If they're not going to do it, encourage the vice president and the president to have the vice president walk in and say, Thune, sit down. Here's what we're going to do. If that is constitutionally, if he's able to do that constitutionally, it should be done. That did not come from Mike Lee. Mike, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Let me tell you about our sponsor. It's LifeLock. Stealing used to mean physically taking something, a wallet, a checkbook, maybe a credit card. And if those things were still in your pocket, you were good. The world has changed, however. Today, a thief doesn't need to touch your wallet at all. They just need information, a date, a name, a birth date, Social Security number, a password that might have been exposed in a data breach that you've never even heard about. With just a few pieces of information, someone you've never met can start opening accounts, taking out loans, committing crimes using your name. That's why services like LifeLock exist. LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second for signs that somebody may be trying to use your personal information, and if they detect a threat, they alert you. And if you do become a victim of identity theft, a dedicated U.S.-based restoration specialist is going to work to fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. So protect yourself with LifeLock now. Join and save up to 40% off your first year with the promo code BECK. It's 1-800-LifeLock, 1-800-LifeLock. Head to LifeLock.com. Use the promo code BECK. Save 40%. Terms to apply.
Glenn Beck.
Welcome back to the Torch Insider Show. I'm sorry, I'm kind of discombobulated because Mike Lee just said the D word, and now I don't really know. I feel like everything has been just completely upended in my world. That is the equivalent. If Mike Lee is that pissed off, you can imagine the other words he wants to say, but his moralities and scruples are holding him back. This is serious from Mike Lee. I'm also a little bit off because I just got I was looking through the comments, and one of the comments I've seen from Darkstar, but I've seen this from other people also, said exactly what powers does the vice president have? Can the vice president actually take over and run the Senate, or is his role limited? And Darkstar actually asked me to ask George. So that's what I did. And I didn't do a typical podcast, what I would normally do for this. So I just did a question, and I'm actually reading from it right now. But they said, this is from George. In truth, his appointment in the Senate was meant to add a bit of dignity to the proceedings, not wield influence. The Constitution didn't hand the vice president any real legislative power. The most tangible role was casting the tie-breaking vote when the Senate reaches a deadlock, and that's it. No agenda setting, no directing Senate debates, just stepping in when the numbers stall. Some of the Constitution's framers even worried this role might step on the Senate's toes, so they kept the vice president's power purposely limited. So there's that from George AI. Good on you, Darkstar, for asking me to do that, because that's exactly what it's intended for. But that's how it is, and it doesn't sound like there's any real help, which sucks for this, but that's how the founders intended it to be. So I was just looking at, I saw a post from the real Mr. Post, and he was talking about, so there was some media reporting on this. I think it was local. I don't remember where we got the rifle information from that they looked like they had rifles. These two thieves at Fort Campbell. And I just pulled up the actual criminal investigation from the Department of Army. Matt, throw this up. So they have a $5,000 reward, but there's no mention of rifles in this. So I'm wondering if the people that mentioned that saw that and thought that it was a rifle, but that's not mentioned in the official reward document. And the real Mr. Post said, Jason, that's not a gun, it's a Halligan. Is that how you pronounce that? Halligan tool? Tapered at the bottom, and the top has a wedge sticking out. Look at a picture of one, probably used to pry the lock off or pry the outside door open. So I did look at the tool. Producer Matt, throw that up. That is I don't even know if I'm saying it right. It's a firefighter Halligan tool. And that does look exactly like what's on the picture. 2 minutes? Gotcha. That does look exactly like it. If I maybe can zoom that in. That's as far as it goes? That's as far as it goes. That looks exactly like it. I think you're right, real Mr. Post. I think that's exactly what it is. So anyway, a couple minutes. Yeah, so let's go to Tess Cliff. Yes, Jason, please explain if steak and lobster is code for something else, although I'm totally okay with feeding our military well. Steak and lobster. So I'm getting this from the story from, let's see, the Washington Free Beacon, and it had a list of journalists, air-quoted journalists, that were raging at the Pentagon for feeding troops steak and lobster, and they saw like a $24 million budget. Steak and lobster, if it's not a holiday, and they don't just have to serve it because it's
There's a couple of things that are breaking. Probably next week, Data Republican is on a really strong theory that she said she can prove about Politico and Punchbowl and everything else, and how the Senate actually is working and Congress is actually working. We'll get into that later. Also, the Ayatollah has just made a statement. I don't know how he did it in a coma, but he's just made a statement. Attacks on the U.S. and our bases, et cetera, is going to continue. They're going to avenge the blood of martyrs. And they are considering opening other fronts if necessary. I would say a storefront, maybe selling coffins would be a good one.
2, 1. Are you sure, Matt? Are you sure that's the right time? We said, get out of here. Matt cut me off last time. I think you guys are encouraging him to screw with me now. I got cut off, but this steak and lobster thing, just to tie that all up, that is, if it's not spoiled, if it's not about to be spoiled, or if it's not a holiday, you typically know what steak and lobster means if you're forward deployed in the military. It means that you're about to go downrange. Pretty much every single time. Right before I got deployed in Afghanistan, right after 9/11, I was on a ship. I think it was a LHA, which is like a helicopter aircraft carrier. And that's where my Marine unit was stationed at the time. And we were just about to get on the helicopters and go into Afghanistan. And the night before that happened, we all got steak and lobster. And we were like, okay. And we knew the rumors were going around that we were just about to invade. And we were like, okay, that we know what this means. Sure enough, a couple hours later, the warning order went out and we were gone. So, yeah. If you have an issue with steak and lobster from the military, shut up. Just absolutely shut up. You have, if you are not subscribed to The Torch, you need to do that. You have 3 minutes before you lose access to the Insider Show. I do not want you to lose access. Go to glennbeck.com/torch. Consider subscribing. You're going to get a ton of other content, ton of podcasts that we have that are already on there. Video. There's a TV show that Glenn did just for Torch Insiders on capital controls. You're also going to get our big time Islamization of the West, so we reveal the blueprint for how the Islamists plan to defeat the United States of America and how their entire plan was to target us very specifically, and we were the main target throughout the entire world. This was started way back in the 80s. It's a huge special, and that is going to come up next Thursday, exactly 7 days from today. It is going to be awesome. It's going to be a live documentary. I do not want you to miss out. Go to glennbeck.com/torch. Subscribe. Also, get down and enter into the comments. I am going to focus on your comments right now because there were a ton of good ones, and I don't want to miss any of them. But if you're not subscribed, you don't get this kind of access. You don't get into our conversations and reading them back and forth throughout the entire 3 hours. You want to do it. Subscribe today. So Mark Live said, Jason, my family is convinced that we are losing the war in Iran. Is there anything I can do, or anything I can say or do to show them that we will win? Well, we're going to win. The question is how involved this is going to be. Iranian counterattacks have slowed significantly. I think the last time that General Kane said it was their retaliation attacks have diminished by like 80 or 90%. So we are definitely winning this war. Overwhelmingly winning this war. The question is, how far are we willing to push? So I believe that we are probably through with the first stage of the attack. I'm almost confident that we are in phase 2. But what does phase 2 look like? Well, did you see a lot of the videos that were going around yesterday? But before I talk about those videos, just set this up. Do you remember the interview that Glenn had with the Crown Prince of Iran? Was that like a month ago or so? Glenn asked them, said, well, all the protests that have started and demonstrations in the streets have kind of slowed down or stopped completely. Will you be waiting for U.S. boots on the ground to finish everything off? And the Crown Prince said,